The tail of the tape in the latest chapter of MVP is brought to you by Dave & Buster's, the only place to eat, drink, play, and watch sports.
What can you highlight? The height and the reach. That's how he fights like a cobra.
Bellator MMA presented by Miller Lite now features tonight's co-main event. From SAP Center we go to 3 5-minute rounds in the welterweight division. Brought to you by Spike Sports. We introduce the blue corner first at 5'9", weighing in 171 pounds even. The veteran tonight stands with 25 professional victories, 13 defeats. From Menifee, California, presenting Fernando, the Menifee maniac, Gonzalez. And across the cage, his adversary tonight fights out of the red corner at 6'3", weighing in 170.8 pounds. Always impressive. He's undefeated as a professional. 11 wins, no defeats. Fighting out of London, England, presenting MVP Michael Page. In charge of the action, your referee, Jason Herzog.
Voters gone over the rules in the back. There are no final questions from you, Blue. No final questions from you, Red. You want to touch gloves? Do it now. Come out ready to fight.
No glove touch. This got personal for Fernando Gonzalez when MVP presented him with a helmet in August and said, "You saw what I did to Cyborg. Maybe you'll need this."
Ralph, fight, are you ready? Fight, are you ready? Fight!
I'll tell you, Fernando all week has been acting like he's not scared, and I personally believe him. And why touch gloves? They're going to fight anyway.
Fight Clock brought to you by Miller Lite, the original light beer. Cheers, it's Miller time.
Now the question here, Chuck, you've trained with Fernando. Is he usually, change isn't good. Is he usually an emotional fighter or not? If a guy's usually not emotional, you don't want him emotional.
No,
what do you think?
No, in fairness, no, he is not. And Page did get on the wrong side of it. I'll tell you right now, I don't love the start to this contest. I really think Fernando needs to pressure him. Page right now, anytime he can get that posturing, that distance, that space where he can start using the movement. All that movement is a setup. So many people will say he looks arrogant. Again, I compared him to Anderson Silva earlier. People will say Anderson's out there mocking his opponent. No, he's not. It's a setup. He's trying to distract you. Right now, Page is distracting him. Fernando needs to step in, get this thing dirty, and get his hands on him fast.
So many opponents of Michael Venom Page just get caught standing around watching the show.
But you know, to your point, it's not emotional. There's a method to the madness. Prince Nassim Hamed, you go in, he hits you 4 times. He's controlling range with the movement. It's not just a showboating thing.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah, people tend to, like, you know, discount it as showboating. It's not. It's tactical.
That's exactly right. It's all a distraction. You drop the hands, you're making him think he's safe. You move the feet, you're making him watch what you're doing. You roll the shoulders. You're making him watch you. If he's watching you, he's not attacking.
MVP almost daring Fernando now to come forward.
And I personally wish he would. I understand why Fernando is circling, but at some point he needs to close this distance, particularly when he has the shorter reach.
He's also circling toward the power side, which is strange. Keeps circling to the left.
And he's leading with a rear leg kick. He's missed 3 of them. I think it's time to get in there with some jabs, maybe across and clinch him up.
One thing about MVP, he doesn't throw a lot of wearing down strikes like a Muay Thai fighter. He doesn't really chop you down. He looks for that one pinpoint shot. Stylistically very different.
Point fighting.
Yeah.
Good oblique kick there. Again, I do understand why Fernando is circling away from the power, but at some point he's going to have to close this distance. I suggest he do it with his hands and look to get to a clinch.
We haven't seen any lead hands at all. No lead hooks, no jabs from Fernando Gonzalez.
Everything he talked about doing,
yes.
Not doing. As we always say, how do you simulate MVP? How do you prepare to face someone when there's no one like him?
tough. Not easy to find sparring partners that act like this, that fight like this, that have this kind of build.
Not easy to find people that act like that.
Very true. But you talk about your fight with Anderson Silva, and I noticed in that fight, your willingness to take that shot, to get inside. I might take one, but then I'm going to double leg, I'm going to take you down. That willingness to walk through the fire, we haven't seen that yet from Gonzalez.
That's exactly right. And I didn't come up with that blueprint. I stole it from other guys. But the reality is, when you don't have the reach, when you don't have the skills and the stand-up, you can crowd the guy. You can just overpressure him and shut a lot of his offenses down. Fernando is not doing that. He is circling well. That's the 7th air ball rear leg kick we've seen tonight. I think it's time to put that weapon away. I really think he needs to jab his way in, get to the clinch, and see what he can do here. Even if that leg lands, even if that kick lands, it's not going to get him any closer to turning this into a grappling contest, which is exactly what he admittedly told us he needs to do to win.
In the early days with MVP in the States, fans would get frustrated at him because of his style, because they hadn't seen it. Now they're becoming frustrated with his opponents when they won't engage.
The rear leg kick, the rear tie kick, is a long-range, slow weapon at range. You guys can see it. He's throwing it from way out. That's why he's having trouble ending with that kick. And I agree with you completely. He needs to work the lead leg, lead hand, get something else going.
It's the jump knee.
Trying to catch him coming in.
Fernando Gonzalez makes it through round 1. On tonight, Fedor Emelianenko officially joins the Bellator roster. Don't forget about the top free agent this year, Rory McDonald. Is he the #1 contender for Douglas Lima's world title now that Lima has regained it? Andrei Korshkov will want a rematch, and of course the winner of this one will be right up there in line.
I would argue 170 welterweight is next year's division.
All day, Brendan Ward.
Ward looked good a couple weeks ago, didn't he?
Brutal. And 2 weeks from now on Spike, Andre Fierlu. Remember that name, an undefeated, powerful 170.
Page using the lead hand instead of the foot. Getting a little more brave, getting into the boxing range.
He's going to have to. He's going to have to do something. I can remember how mad Dana White used to get at Anderson Silva and say, look, if you're so much better than these guys, why are you taunting them? Go out and put them away. And Anderson say, but I'm not. This is how I'm trying to set the guys up, but the guys aren't falling for it. Over time, they're so scared. They're just 2 or 3 inches out of range. And that is happening to MVP tonight. Now, Fernando has got to get in there. I mean, I can say it all night long, but until it changes, I'm going to have to say it all night long. It's got to come forward. It's got to close the distance. This outside leg kick to the body just simply isn't going to get this done. He needs to come forward, punch his way into the clinch. I know his head coach, Dan Henderson, better than anybody, and I know that's what Dan Henderson has been working on him with.
So why, in your estimation, has he not done it?
I'm not positive he's seen the angle that he wanted tonight. I'm not positive that he didn't come in there, see a couple of those kicks from MVP and think, you know, let me move around and slow this guy down a little bit. MVP, the one time Gonzalez did come in for a shot, did throw that knee. Obviously, if you're a human that follows this sport, that's on your mind. In fairness, guys, the 3 of us are sitting here thinking about it. Imagine being in the ring with him as Fernando is. You're going to be thinking about that knee. But we can avoid it. Don't change elevation. Come in with a high posture, punch your way in, and look to get to a collar tie or a 50-50 tie.
The question is what Fernando Gonzalez can force out of MVP, because he's waiting for the look he likes. He might be waiting for 16 minutes, and that's too long. What can he force out of MVP? Right now, he hasn't found a way in.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, I get why he's circling, trying to stay away from the power. That big knee that everybody's talking about. MVP needs Fernando to come straight in to be able to land that knee. So if you circle, you can protect yourself from that. But at the same time, there is ways to gain ground.
A slip. MVP took a quick left from Fernando Gonzalez.
He can gain ground even by circling. He just needs to do it with a little bit of a forward motion. An inch here and an inch there, and before you know it, he's clenched.
The only fighter to go the distance with MVP was Sean Burrell, who just kind of rushed in and closed distance, kept him against the fence. It was an awkward fight, but he never found his own offense.
It's the only time he's ever been to the third round. This is already about to become the second longest fight of MVP's career. MVP taunting, daring, he's turned his back.
You almost feel like Fernando Gonzalez is watching the fight just like we are. That he's seeing it, he's not in it.
We like to hit slow-mo on the DVR though.
Yeah, and MVP, you know, in fairness, we keep talking about Fernando and what he needs to do, but MVP needs to cut the ring off. He needs to pressure him and cut the ring off. He's not doing any better at closing this distance, and he is the one with the reach advantage. If anybody should be responsible for closing the distance, it is MVP. He's got to find a way to cut him off and get him within range. He could be winning this contest on entertainment alone, but frankly, he hasn't done a whole lot either.
Yeah, he's pecked with the jab, pecked with the lead kick. He's outlanded Gonzalez, but yeah, hasn't done any damage. Yeah, we've seen that a few times.
One of the hardest shots of the fight, in fairness. Point being, not a lot's happened.
Yeah. If you think he's going to change what he's doing, forget it. Fernando Gonzalez has to find a way around it. He's content to hunt and peck and jab and win rounds. He'll win that way. Fernando Gonzalez has to change it.
Sure. Sticks him with another jab. Barely misses with the cross. But in a round where you've only had 4 or 5 effective strikes, and they're all for MVP, that matters.
I mean, one good combination by Fernando Gonzalez, especially when it hurts him, could turn around the whole round and the whole fight. That just hasn't happened.
Hasn't gotten close. The only time he got close was when MVP slipped. A jump knee and another strong finish. The message to MVP in his corner: this is our fight. Don't change what you're doing because you're going to get frustrated. MVP is a guy that hears the crowd. He wants to please the crowd.
Mentally, one of the worst feelings as a fighter is I lost because I didn't do enough. I could have done more and I didn't. Fernando Gonzalez doesn't want to leave with that feeling tonight.
That's right. Now things are about to get interesting. I do believe Gonzalez is down 2 rounds to 1, but we still would like to see what happens if they clinch up and go to the ground. Let's at least get that question answered.
This is what Sean Burrell did.
Remember, he didn't win him rounds. He just didn't do enough with this positioning.
MVP with excellent defense here. Gonzalez has got to get his hands locked if he wants to try to use a wrestling technique and drag him to the ground. MVP keeping his elbow in now. Gonzalez has his hands locked. The question is, can he step his left leg in between and get him down? Looks like MVP has broke his lock, so now they got to start over. Gonzalez must get his hands locked to have success here. Great job by MVP. Getting his hips off and getting off the fence. If I'm Gonzalez, I go right back to that position.
Remember, against Curtis Millender, Fernando Gonzalez, a tall, rangy fighter, was down and won it with a late guillotine. He does have that comeback ability, but I believe it's on the ground more than on the feet in this fight.
I like what Fernando's doing here. Fernando is now finally pressuring forward. He's making Page back up. Page still has options there. That flying knee, of course, one of them, but his options are limited moving backwards. Fernando can pin him if he can cut off the ring here. He can push him back on the fence and start to work that clinch position, trying to set up a takedown.
But both of those punches, you saw when he had him backing up, he was in the southpaw stance. Both of those punches from the power side. He's not using his lead hand enough, in my opinion, to get MVP where he wants him.
Yeah, he needs to get that respect of MVP, and MVP knows there's not enough power on that lead or that jab hand.
But if he had taken this approach from the start of the fight, the judges might be looking at it differently.
Different fight.
far more effective cutting off the cage now.
Herzog ain't having it.
Listen, he's seeing the same thing we've been talking about, gentlemen, for the last 12 minutes. And MVP's hands aren't clean in this either. He's got to find a way to close the distance. He can't just move. At some point, he's got to go forward, or if his opponent backs up, he's got to cut off the ring.
Let me put this another way. You want to be a contender. Douglas Lima isn't watching this in fear right now. He's not, and you want to send a message to the next guy you fight with every performance.
That's right.
Not that I think Douglas Lima fears a lot of guys, but you know what I mean.
Sure, I know what you mean. Guys see opportunity here.
MVP lost the first round of his career in round 1 to Cyborg. This might be the second, but will it be enough? We are closing in on the battle for the lightweight world title, years in the making between Michael Chandler and Ben Henderson.
Now Fernando Gonzalez is moving forward with confidence. He doesn't believe MVP can hurt him at this point. You can tell by his body language. He's willing to walk through the fire, like we said in round 1. Problem is, it's a little late.
Now watch the hips of MVP here. You can tell he's been practicing on the wall. He keeps those hips back.
Great defense right there.
Tries to stop Fernando from locking his hands, whether he's using that underhook or just getting an elbow inside. Now Fernando's got his hands locked, so MVP needs to sit back, try to break the lock by dropping his hips and putting his weight into the cage. He's doing this very, very well. He's using his height, and this is a skill that he's going to need, whether it's against Lima, Bamba, whoever his next opponent is, and you can tell that MVP has worked on this position. Very impressively, Fernando Gonzalez is very tough in this clinch position. MVP isn't doing a lot here, but he doesn't need to. This isn't his skill set. He's just stopping the action from going down. He's completely countering, but he is countering successfully.
Great natural balance this guy has. You can see it.
The crowd didn't love it, and you have to wonder if this goes the way we think it will. Why did Fernando Gonzalez wait so long to become so aggressive? Did MVP do enough to remain undefeated? We'll find out next. That is how we see it. How will the judges see it as Michael Venom Page goes the distance for just the second time in his career?
Ladies and gentlemen, having gone the distance, we'll go to your 3 judges at cage side. Your first judge, Michael Bell, scores the fight 29-28. He scores it for Page. Your second judge, Michael Gincona, scores the fight 30-27, scoring it for Gonzalez. Your third and final judge at cage side, Ron McCarthy, scores the fight 29-28, seeing it for the winner by split decision and still undefeated MVP, Michael Venom Page.
Well, MVP fights are usually talked about after, but not for this reason. MVP survives by split decision, a 30-27 card against him in that fight. A lot of bad blood that did not really boil over in the cage. MVP and Fernando Gonzalez go the distance, and MVP stays undefeated. But this slow his roll on his title track in his meteoric rise? That's the question.